Hey beautiful soul, I am Chloe Rose here in the stunning Topplewood. You can probably hear all kinds of bird sounds around me in northwest Oxfordshire in the UK. I've just turned around so you can see the spring sunshine. I'm wearing this woolen cardigan and I'm actually too hot. It's really warm here today in the UK. Such a blessing. And I wanted to talk today about my journey with mental health. And I thought, what better place to do that than in nature, immersed in nature. I often refer to nature as free therapy. That was a tongue twister. Free therapy. I've got nature to thank for supporting me and helping me through some of the toughest times in my life, and always continuing to remind me that inner peace is really all that I'm striving for in this life. So yeah, I wanted to talk about my journey with mental health. It's not something I talk a lot about recently, or currently actually, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just wanted to share with you some of my journey and the steps that I've taken and implemented to help support me to where I am today, which I would consider to be in a place of peace, definitely a place of calm. My nervous system feels good. I don't feel anxious anymore. I would say the only thing that I have to be mindful of with my own mental health is when I can get, if I'm tired or I haven't rested enough, or I haven't done pause or taken time to myself enough, I can feel these negative thoughts start coming in, and if I don't catch them, they can begin spiraling. So other than that, I would say I'm in a pretty well-rounded and balanced state of mental health in my life at the moment, and I have been the best of my entire life, definitely in the last year, and it only continues growing and getting better. And I'm sharing this because it has most certainly not been this way for me. I just have to show you the view behind me, because it is just so green and beautiful. So I have a very strong bipolar gene in my family, in the matriarchal side of my family. So my grandma has it, my mum's sister has it, my mum has some subtle, what's the word, symptoms of it, but not totally, luckily. So I do have to be really mindful of my mental health. And in my mental health, how it manifests, mental health issues for me, how it manifests for me is really through addictions. So before I got into drugs, that was my big thing, my big downfall, if you like, but also some of the most fun and crazy times of my life too. I don't see everything as negative. There's this gorgeous tree behind me. So when I was pre-drug stage, when I was young, a teenager, food was always my thing. I would very much yo-yo between controlling my weight to not eating, or finding ways to make me purge, to control myself and make myself really skinny. And then I would go to the opposite extreme and get really depressed, and then use food as a comfort. So, even that is, the mild expression of bipolar. You get states of being manic, the skinny, the controlling, the not eating, and then depressed and slowing down and eating my emotions. So that's where it all started. And then I always struggled with school. I've always been a very rebellious soul. As far as I can remember, I always struggled to understand what was the point of school, especially, you know, the Western government schooling system. I was always tuned into the programming and the indoctrination, and I really struggled with, you know, being forced into that environment and having that pressure from society and from family. And I really was the black sheep. I really just wanted to paint and write and create, and I was a very philosophical soul from a young age, and being in that confinement of the education system, I feel, was what kind of pushed me over the edge. And I didn't understand how to express how I was feeling, and I was a very, very shy and withdrawn in my younger years. Even in my 20s, I was shy and withdrawn, and I would use drugs and alcohol as a false sense of confidence. So yeah, I just really struggled, and I dropped out of 2 different colleges, and then I just had a break for a while, and yeah, I just had a downfall and spent many years of my life taking drugs and drinking and really following that escapism and finding, you know, I did find joy, and I did find a sense of, I mean, definitely found some states of expanded consciousness through all of that experimenting and through that rebellion. But sadly, what it didn't do was give me the inner confidence that I needed to actually stand up for myself and say, you know what, I am a creative soul who is going to do things differently. I didn't have that inner strength, and I didn't understand how to deal with my emotions, and so they built up inside me. And then yeah, I really started to get anxious, and I remember in my early 20s really dealing with states of anxiety, and you know, hangovers definitely don't help that, and just feeling like, oh my god, I would rather die than have to face the consequences of what happened to me the day before, you know, and it ends up snowballing and spiraling. And I just remember that, you know, that feeling in my solar plexus where it feels like someone has come in with their hand and just gone like a ball or a knot that just can't be released. And yeah, so the anxiety would spiral. I felt like for most of my days, from say like 20 to age 24, I'd just be in this constant survival state of fight or flight, so on edge, and just totally addicted to distraction, whether that's food, drugs, alcohol, partying, films, TV, music. But probably then it wasn't music that was serving me. I'm a lot more conscious with the music that I listen to now. Not saying that I only listen to spiritual music. I don't. I listen to a whole variety of music now. I'm just conscious about how it makes me feel and what I'm seeking from it. Yeah, and then it got to a point in my 20s when I believe I was about 24, and I was driving to work, and I started having panic attacks, and I was just like, oh shit, okay, this is really, really serious now. Started having panic attacks so bad that I would have to, like on a motorway, I would have to stop my car and just like be like, okay, it's okay, I'm not dying. Like having real, like I just had no idea who I was, if I was alive or dead. Like I was just totally disconnected from reality, and because I was so ungrounded within myself, and with my mental health. So that was when my mental health really hit an all-time low. And after that was, well, actually, let me backtrack a bit. I've missed some stuff. So before that happened, before I had these panic attacks, I was working in really stressful jobs. So I was working as an event manager in London in the UK. So I was living in the city as well. City life definitely does not support harmonious states of mental health. So I was working as an events manager in the hospitality industry in London, and, you know, working like ridiculous hours, commuting every day. And I don't know why, but something within me just said, no, you know what? This was after the panic attacks. Yeah, I took this job because I needed some money. I had like debts to pay off. So I took this job, and something possessed me. I don't know what it was, but something possessed me to go to a yoga class. And I remember little young 20-year-old me laying down on that mat. I fell asleep like before the class even started. I lay down on the mat, and there must have been something about the vibes in the yoga studio that just put me to sleep instantly. Hello. There are lots of pheasants around here. And so I passed out, woke up obviously when the class began. And then at the end of the class, I remember after Shavasana, walking out of that yoga studio and thinking, for the first time in my life, I have felt peace of mind. And I will never, ever forget that moment. That was life-changing for me. I was like, how has an hour of my life, being in this studio with like 20 other people, without a phone, I didn't think about that at the time, you know, without a phone, without distraction, with beautiful music, this really hardcore practice, and then coming out of that feeling like my whole world had been turned down, like all the noise turned down, all of those anxious, negative thoughts that were on constant overdrive in my head, like working round the clock, all of that calmed down. That was life-changing for me. And so today I'm almost 36 years old. So that yoga class must have been 12, 13 years ago. And I've been practicing yoga ever since that day, regularly. And I would say that having an embodiment practice, so it doesn't have to be yoga. I know that not everyone's thing is yoga, but having an embodiment practice where you are aware of your body. I also feel that something about doing this with other people adds an extra layer of power to it. Having an embodiment practice, so that could be yoga, qigong, martial arts, some kind of conscious dance, improv's a good one. That's a good one for people who are really shy and need to work on confidence. Very specific embodied practices. Adopting one and committing to it for at least 5 years, I would actually say that could be one of my top recommendations for completely changing your state of mental health. And look, my yoga preferences, so the practices that I like, have totally changed and transformed over those 13 years of practicing. Totally changed. You know, in my 20s I loved the hardcore hot yoga, and now I'm like the slower and the deeper the better. I also love Kundalini yoga and learning how to manage the energy within my body. So that is honestly my number one top tip. And yeah, and then 7 years ago I started teaching yoga, and that took it even a level deeper, But you know, it was 7 years of practicing and then being like, oh, I would actually love to share this with other people. And that was, yeah, it's really beautiful. And I wanted to share that because a lot of people that I meet say to me, like, you're so calm and you're so self-aware. And if I had to choose one thing that is like mainly responsible for that, it would be committing myself to practicing yoga for so many years, like almost 14 years now. And it's something that I still enjoy and still gain knowledge and insight from to this day. And some of my greatest creative insights have come through that time spent on the mat, when it's just me, my mind, my body, and my emotions and my energy there, present, working together in harmony. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you. And of course, there's so many more layers to that. On top of that, I completely changed the way that I eat. My relationship to food totally changed. I feel like that's something that I could talk about in a whole different video. I'll probably do how I completely changed my relationship to food in another video. But again, that was years and years of deprogramming myself of what I've been told was good for me or good for my health and good for my mental health, and actually learning for myself. So I took a 2-year self-study practice in alternative medicines, and I vowed to myself to stop taking pharmaceutical medicine, obviously unless an emergency, of course, and that completely changed my life. So I holistically treat myself now. And that had a huge, profound effect on my mental health, because, you know, pharmaceutical medicines, although they are just amazing in certain cases, they are drugs at the end of the day. So they do have a chemical impact on our bodies, on our minds, on our hormones, on our nervous system, our neurological system. You know, we just can be honest with it. I'm not saying anything is good or evil, but it's just taking note of that. And then, of course, the big one, how can I forget? How did I stabilize my mental health? Hold on, I just have to show you this ram. He's got massive horns. Oh, it's so fluffy. I just want to cuddle the ram. A big one for me, you know, was getting sober, cutting out the drugs, and then slowly cutting out the alcohol, the cigarettes, all of those addictive distractions. And that's probably the hardest part of my mental health journey, because when we cut out these chemical substances like drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, what happens is all of those emotions that we've been suppressing begin to start flooding to the surface. So it can feel very, very intense at first, but after a while you begin to experience this mental clarity. And as someone who has suffered most of my life with mental health issues, whether it be anxiety, panic attacks, depression, there have been moments in my life where I've had suicidal thoughts, to get to a place in my life where I have mental clarity, honestly, there's no words to describe that feeling. There's no words to describe. It's like being baptized. What you can imagine a baptism might feel like, just this whole refresh of your mind, of your body, and you suddenly start feeling like, hey, I'm the one who is going to be in control of my life now. And then I would say the last couple of things, this is just so multi-layered, and I'm trying to do this in a short video without going too deep into it. I'm also going to get really out of breath soon because I'm walking uphill. So another thing was finding purpose, and the road to do that is difficult, because to find purpose, it means healing those deep emotional wounds. And this has been my real deep focus and dedication to myself for the last 6 years, has been healing the major wounding of my life, which has been that I've never had a father. He still lives and exists, I believe, but he's never chosen to be a part of my life. So yeah, it's been dealing with that and finding the patterns in my life that have caused a domino effect on many other traumatic situations in my life, and then also addressing other main relationships in my life, and then doing all of the necessary healing around that. And it's just continual, but coming to a place of understanding and acceptance emotionally. So we've had mental, physical, emotional. You know, once you have gained some of that clarity, it's a good time to go in and do some of the emotional work. And then finally, energy. Really understanding how much energy affects us, that and really understanding that we are energy, and we are in an energy universe, not just on Earth. Like, the whole universe is energy. So and what I've come to realize is that when you start making decisions that are supporting your mental health, like I said, you know, dedicating to an embodied practice for at least 5 years, changing the way you eat, the relationship with food, substances, drugs, and then doing that emotional healing, that then starts to put you in a place where you start feeling worthy of actually like putting yourself first and putting your own energy first. So protecting your energy from people who don't have your best interests at heart, great for your mental health, because other people can trigger us and spiral us back into that space of looping negativity. So yeah, having that strength to learn boundaries and protecting your energy, learning some kind of magical practice, whether that's witchcraft, shamanism, quantum healing, Reiki, whatever you feel lights you up and aligns you, choosing that, working with it. So yeah, and then of course, hopefully this one goes without saying, but this is my second top tip for transforming your mental health from struggle to striving, is just get outside, be in nature. You know, even if you live in a city, maybe that means planning to move somewhere away from the city. Like, if you really want to put your mental health first, that could be one of the biggest blessings of your whole life. But yeah, getting out in nature. Remember, the 4 walls around you are like a prison for your mind, body, heart and soul. Get out in nature and just allow yourself to expand. The opposite of depression is expression, and that can just mean expressing your energy. And when we're out in nature, nature mirrors that expression from within.